So, Emily, what are your best interview tips and tricks?
I would say my first would be that it's okay to need to think about the answer. So just to take a moment, process the question and think about how you really want to respond. I think if we just jump into it too quickly, it all just spills out in a jumbled, no sense mess. And you sit there and you think after, oh, I wish I'd answered that question in this way. I had this really good example in my head, but because we almost panic and just want to get the question over with, we don't think about what we're really saying. And I have personally struggled with it. I think, if you take more than a couple of seconds, it feels like everyone's staring at you and you've been sat in silence for hours. But just take those, even if it's 10 to 15, 30 seconds, whatever you need to think properly about how you want to answer that question, because there's no restarts, there's no retakes. You want to think and get your best foot forward. And my other one would be to kind of research, keep up with current events or things that are going on with that company to show that, you are invested and you know what you're talking about. I think I was asked a question in an interview of, what recent legal news was there that I was keeping up with and interested in. And luckily for me, I was keeping up with current news and has an example that I could draw from. So I think it's important to think about what kinds of questions they could ask you and prepare. But at the same time, which is rather annoying, don't over prepare. Don't try and formulate a script in your mind.
Yeah, so true.
Because they ask the questions ever so slightly differently, so that you need to think of something new and fresh. And you don't want to be caught out looking like you're almost reading a script from your mind. So notes, fine. Script, stay away from.
Yeah,
Elliot,
I completely agree.
Think?
I echo a lot of what you said, to be honest. It is okay to pause and think. A good technique for that as well is when you get there and they ask you if you want to drink, get a glass of water. And then when you need a break to pause, if they've asked a question, you're not quite sure the answer, grab a glass of water, take a sip. It gives you that time to compose yourself. Preparation is key for interviews. Make sure that you're researching the company, finding out what their values are, what they stand for, what they're doing. Practice mock questions, but like Emily said, don't make a script, because they will ask questions that catch you off guard. Try and expect the unexpected. And I think most of all as well, try and make it a two-way conversation. Try and switch that mentality, because once you switch that mentality, it is a game changer. It's no longer an interrogation into you. It's a conversation, because it's not just figuring out why you're good for that role. It's also why that role and business is good for you. You have a lot to bring as well. To try and ask good questions, challenge them, and make it a two-way conversation. And then lastly, I'd say it always feels worse in your head afterwards. I don't think many people walk away from an interview thinking, I smashed that. I answered every question exactly how I would have wanted to. Everyone walks away from interviews thinking that they could have said something slightly differently. I think when you come away from an interview, just try and give yourself some grace. Try and not be so hard on yourself, and just wait until you hear back. What about you, Chloe?
So I remember before my training contract interview, where we are at the moment, I was so painfully nervous, which I think I tend to be before every interview. But I spoke to some of our people and development ladies at work, and they gave me some hints and tips on how I could calm my nerves. So the best one that I used, I actually went into the toilets before our interview and I was box breathing, which is in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. And that really helped kind of regulate me and ground myself, because I was so nervous. Around a week before as well, I spoke to someone else who kind of gave me a bit of a pep talk and said, you think about how your friends perceive you. you know, my friends would say I'm an absolute pain in the backside. I'm really confident. I'm really loud. I'm quite noisy. And try and bring that into the interview, change your attitude, change your mindset, just come across you. So actually on the day of our interview, I wore different glasses because I thought, oh, I've got different glasses. It'll make me like a different person. And it's all about the psychology kind of behind it, trying to bring that confidence and put yourself across in a really good way, rather than being really shy and kind of in myself. And I think those tips really helped me come across much more how I wanted to in our interviews, and that really helped me out, and ultimately I think helped me gain the training contract that we've got now.
That last one is such a good tip, wearing the different glasses. I think you're so right. It's all about mentality. If you go in there with, you know, try not to let your nerves get the better of you, is all I would say. Just try and give it your all. And the worst thing that can happen is that they say no.
Exactly. It's kind of a Clark Kent effect, I think, with the glasses, just a completely different person.
I think you also have to remember that the majority of the questions are going to be about you, and nobody knows you better than yourself. So who better to sit there and talk about yourself and, you know, represent yourself, sell yourself to them, because you know the best version of you. So put that across. And also, just going back to techniques, a brilliant one as well is just to shake it out before you go into the room. To just imagine the nerves, give your body a good shake all over, shake out those nerves and go in ready to go. I do think those techniques are so important to get rid of those nerves, because I don't know many people who aren't extremely nervous before an interview. But I've had it myself where I've let the nerves get the best of me, and it's ruined the interview.
You've got to sell yourself, because if you don't, then no one will.